Back around the start of 2018, Capcom released what would be, at that time, their biggest selling title ever, Monster Hunter World. The game that used to be just a small niche in the gaming scene finally hit mainstream success thanks to its impressive visuals, many quality of life improvements, accessibility, and its strong focus on the multiplayer experience. Thanks to that, the announcement of Monster Hunter Rise made it one of the most anticipated games on the Nintendo Switch. Heck, it convinced me to buy a Pro Controller. It even convinced my brother to get a Switch for himself as well. By the way, hello again, Lundrapy here. So, as some of you might know, I've become a huge fan of Monster Hunter World, and I'm very likely to have a close look at what they've done to improve on the formula since then. I've written a bunch of guides before, and I've also reviewed the actual game, so we're probably not going to go into too much detail about things that we already recognize to be part of this title. It's going to be more generally focused on what they've changed and how that's good or bad for the series. So without further ado, we wake up to a very welcome Ara Ara, quickly followed by the stereo system that are the Shrine Maidens of Kamura. After a quick tour of things around the hidden ninja village, you are quickly dispatched to do your job, and that job, as the name of the game implies, is to hunt monsters. Well, that and face the Rampage, an event that happens every 50 years that has a horde of monsters traveling through the land, and Kamura Village is in the way. Let's break down how this all plays out. While the Switch is a more modest piece of hardware, Monster Hunter Rise is definitely no slouch in terms of games that look good on it. Yes, it's not going to be world, but how this game looks and performs considering it's on a portable device is amazing. If you look closely, you'll see technical things like pixelated edges or textures that could have looked better, but how it works seamlessly between docked and portable mode is already an achievement. It pretty much runs on a consistent 30 FPS almost the entire time, even with an army of monsters going wild on your screen. Also, instead of making this vast world that kind of dances around the line of realism and fantasy, Rise sells in a more homey feel of a small village with its colorful characters while embracing a more stylized and campy approach. The liveliness of the village is expressed much the same way as monsters show how powerful they are, and that's through how they move. The whole way the game is presented bears the Japanese inspirations it draws from. You carry kunais all the time, you eat rice cakes before leaving for a quest, even depictions of monsters you will fight are given the whole vintage look. In fact, even some of the music have a very oriental ring to them as well. Speaking of music, I ended up having a lot of favorites in the soundtrack so far. Honestly speaking, I didn't realize I wanted to have vocal tracks while fighting epic enemies until now. Normally, I'd find it too pervasive in a fight that's asking you to give all your attention to this one monster, but I think they pulled off an alright way of having somebody singing in the background without being distracting. The voice work is also pretty okay. There isn't much story for the characters to capitalize on, so it's a little difficult to say if they really nailed it, but I instantly recommend the Japanese voice set to complete the campy old Japan feel. The English voices do a pretty alright job if you can deal with the occasional accents. I mean, in case you missed the old grainy film intros, the Dango song, the surfer dude instructor, it's really deliberately campy. And sometimes it's a little cringy, but most of the time I'm on board. Overall, I think Rise is well put together in terms of presentation and performance. I cannot wait to see how well their new engine performs for their next games. Excellent job, Capcom.
Good work.
Alright, so by now we all know that you run around and attack, dodge, block monsters in this game. What else is new? We'll go over them in a bit, but let's have a closer look on what makes the gameplay loop so compelling for this title. So far, the actual hunts in Monster Hunter have been a lot like eating a layer cake. It's made of pretty solid individual parts, but when put together, man, is the whole greater than the sum of its parts. You master and refine not only your own equipment, but also have to know how to use said gear up against a specific monster you're taking on. You must know what the tells are for what attacks and be able to decipher openings between them. Underneath all this is the actual map you are having your battle to the death on. You must know the intricacies of the terrain, knowing not only how to traverse it, but also what's useful within it and what you're better off avoiding or preparing for. With the three pieces of you, the monster, and the world you are in put together, they create a delectable cake called the Encounter Design. And all you have to do to mix things up is change any of the three factors it puts together, giving you iterations of something familiar to feel good to play, but at the same time has something new for you to learn along the way. These layered, intertwining game loops are the very things that made me fall in love with Monster Hunter. So what have they made to capitalize on this really solid core? Well, they added bugs. No, not the bugs that ruins your game saves, which they have thankfully patched, but the little magical creatures that serve as your universal tool for doing really cool things in the game. The wire bug mechanic was initially presented as a new way of getting around, allowing you to quickly go through the air to maybe make quick jumps across the area or climb to higher places, but it's a lot more than that. It's a resource for basically doing cool things. Yes, I know I've said it twice, but I can't think of a better way to describe it. The added vertical layer of movement in the game made it possible to move through maps faster and give everyone new ways of moving during combat. Want to do air attacks? Sure. You have a heavy weapon but need to chase something fast? No problem. But that's not all it does. Wire bugs also enable silkbind techniques. They augment your chosen weapon's capabilities both in offense and defense by giving you much more powerful moves that help make fights easier. In return, monsters also become more relentless, move faster, they also have insane range, and some even trap you into deadly combos. Worry not, there's a wire bug for that. Wirefall allows you to escape and quickly recover so long as you're not stunned. There are times that it's impossible, but this serves as a get out of jail card for players if they're willing to spend the wire bug for it. So ultimately, it becomes a question of what do you want to do, because there's a limit of how much you can use wire bugs and you can't do much if they're all cooling down. Anyway, swinging around the map, fun. Doing new attack, defense, and escape moves, more fun. These little wing fellows have given so much more to Monster Hunter and we're all better for it. I honestly can't believe how far they've taken the idea of the Clutch Claw from Monster Hunter World. But that's not all, they've also added the Palamutes, which serves as an alternate assistant that you can bring along in hunts. They're actually very useful, especially if you're still getting used to the game. These lovely dogs and cat assistants, which are called Palicos, have a whole new system to them as well, allowing you to further customize how you want them to help you out. They can also go on their own little quests and bring back some unique materials for you. Last but not least is another new and really fun thing they've added to Monster Hunter, which is the evolution of mounting, and that is Wyvern Riding. I mean, yeah, fighting monsters is fun, but have you tried fighting as a monster? This stuff is amazing. It's nothing too complicated, but it makes fights a lot more dynamic as you get this 1 minute where you're nearly invincible to make hunts easier. Honestly, I think this function is a little overpowered right now, but I'm also having too much fun with it to honestly think it's a real problem. If you think you're in for an epic story with Monster Hunter Rise, you clearly don't know Capcom very well. But they do enough to set the stage and get you going. Characters are fun and memorable enough to pleasantly interact with. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there trying to decide who the best girl is by now, but you know, and I know, that the real waifus are the long swords, gun lances, bows, and what have you. Also, Minoto Stan, fight me. The base game comes at you with 35 big baddies to fight and take down, where you can seek them out through village quests, basically the Training Wheels edition, or hub quests, which is where the real hunts start. I think this is a nifty way of introducing new players to the game while respecting the time of more avid fans, as you can start hub quests almost immediately after the start of Monster Hunter Rise. One of the most amazing things they've added in this title is basically putting the entire evolution of each weapon in the game. They do this by giving you a choice of what skills to switch on each weapon, having a total of 6 possible different versions of every weapon out there. So far, none of the weapons I've tried have felt less viable than any other as well. Everything so far just seems fun and interesting to use. Monster Hunter Rise doesn't only refine the formula, but tries something completely new. Rampage Quests is a mix of some sort of tower defense and a horde mode, where you fight off a small army of monsters with whatever you can muster. This initially felt like a mess because of how I was used to intense one-on-one battles throughout my play sessions with this series. But when I got used to the mechanics and understood what to do, things clicked a lot better. And now I'm just as excited to play Rampages as I am to do regular quests. It definitely changes up the pace, so while they didn't quite stick the landing on this one, I think it's a great addition. Next point would be all the secrets and side quests you can do in this game. MH Rise is a really small game looking back, but it never really felt that way while playing it. It just feels so dense with the little secrets you find and all the small side activities you can do, which nearly all contribute to making hunting better for you, thus are worthwhile to do. I also personally enjoyed exploring the maps to really get to know them and even reach hidden areas or find Easter eggs. I mean, that's exactly how I came up with the Moneymaker video before this one. Side quests and activities actually don't vary much, but they're all definitely worth doing and they never feel like they're in the way, so I generally liked having them around. And finally, well, they had to put the RNG grind somewhere, right? Talismans are here for you to meld and hope that you get what you actually need. Since this is more of an extra piece of equipment, it's not so bad, but man, I play enough gacha games and I know where this is going. Monster Hunter Rise has a rather impressive online experience. While the capacity is cut down by a factor of 4, it still brings a lot of world's innovations and more. You can still join other people's quests or have them join yours at your own risk. By the way, we'll always run into randos that don't play very well, unfortunately. Anyway, the most impressive part is how good the online experience is, coming from a place that has notoriously bad connections for games. How stable it is really encourages me to keep playing online. I'm finally making the most out of that Nintendo Online subscription. Goodness. But that's not the only improvement they offered for online. Back then, once another player drops in on your quest, the difficulty was automatically set for fighting a team of 4. Now, it incrementally changes to accommodate a team of 2 or 3 as well. To top it all off, the dynamic monster difficulty now swings both ways. Got a player disconnected in the middle of a fight for whatever reason? No problem, the game will automatically set the monster HP to a proportional ratio. This makes disconnections a lot less painful, which I really treasure because we can't all have pristine internet connections. Thank you, Capcom. Of course, there's also the local Wi-Fi connection between the portable Nintendo Switches, which works seamlessly. Also, did I mention how well the game loads at pretty much any point? I had to get used to fairly long load times on the PS4 with Monster Hunter World, but with Rise, loading time is pretty much negligible. Honestly, the game achieves so much on a technical level, I could only wish that this happened earlier. On a side note, I do kinda wish that there were better personalization features, or at least more hairdo options as compared to its predecessors. A constant theme I keep running into here is the insane amount of freedom Monster Hunter Rise gives you. You can customize how your weapon of choice works, you can focus on using wire bugs to move around in a fight, or just dedicate them to using powerful silk bind techniques. You can choose to use a Palamute to traverse larger spaces, or just swing around with the wire bugs and pretend you're in a Spider-Man game. You can rush the game or just play at whatever pace you like. You can play solo or play regularly with your own party of friends. You can stick to learning just part of the game and generally get through it okay. But if you choose to make use of everything this Monster Hunter title has to offer, you are rewarded in a multitude of useful ways. All this freedom so that you can dance as freely as you like with the obstacles that the game wants to throw at you. Ever heard of the saying it takes 2 to tango? Like for the dances meant for pairs, there's supposed to be an interaction between the two dancing or else it just doesn't look good. While there's traditionally a guy who takes the lead for the beat or the steps to take, the lady dancing along still has to pull off the moves when it's their turn to show off. Hours and hours poured into rehearsals to pull off a routine as perfectly as they can. I'd say this would be the same for games known for their difficulty, like those of the From Software games, or Fury, or Devil May Cry, and of course Monster Hunter. The difficulty isn't there to give you a bad time, but to get you to a higher level of play. The difficulty lends some substance to the term beating the game, where it becomes an actual achievement. This remains the core of Monster Hunter Rise, but at the same time continues on the developments that the previous title World left off, by adding in accessibility, quality of life improvements, and giving a new degree of freedom to the players. It's easier than ever to get into. The real miracle here is how they achieve this balance without compromising the challenge that the game wants you to overcome. Monster Hunter Rise gets so many things right, and it's only getting started. I recommend picking up this title and see how easily you will quickly come back for just one more hunt, by yourself, maybe with friends, or whoever you meet online. Monster Hunter Rise is certainly raising the bar, scoring a 4.8 out of 5. Get this game on the Nintendo Switch, or you can wait for the PC port coming on 2022. And that's it for our review. I can't wait to play more Monster Hunter Rise, honestly. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, please click that like. If you are still here, why not click subscribe as well? Make that 1-2 combo. But if you just want to check out our content, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want to see everything we make, you'll find it on RayMaruFiles.com. That's it for now. Thank you for sticking around, and I'll see you guys again.